Ladies and gentlemen, please gather around this general court-martial that is now in session. My name is Captain Moses Granberry of the 5th Regiment of the Continental Army, and today we are here at the court-martial of Private Willem Willems of the 1st North Carolina Regiment of the Continental Army. On the court-martial tribunal, we have Colonel Francis Nash of the 1st North Carolina Line. Will the other two officers please stand and give your names and ranks?
Captain John Kingsbury, North Carolina Artillery.
Captain Barnes, North Carolina Artillery.
Thank you, gentlemen. Please be seated. This court-martial is convened by warrant of Brigadier General James Moore of the North Carolina Line. Bring the prisoner to the dock! Stand, sir. Private Willem Willems, I advise you that pursuant to the Articles of War, that you may put on a defense with any relevant testimony and give evidence before this tribunal. You will be permitted to cross-examine the tribunal's witnesses. You will at no time shall be compelled to give evidence which may incriminate yourself. You may seek the assistance of counsel should you wish that may represent you in your defense. Do you understand, sir?
I do.
Very well. Raise your right hand. Raise both of your hands. Do you solemnly swear that the evidence you shall give before this court-martial shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I so swear.
Very well. Do you wish to present counsel before the tribunal?
I do.
Who is your counsel, sir?
Is this man here?
Very well. Sergeant Cruz will act as your counsel. Sergeant Cruz, you will now be sworn before the tribunal. Raise your right hand, sir. Do you solemnly swear that the evidence you shall give before this court-martial shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Thank you, Sergeant. Will the members of the jury sitting in tribunal please stand and be sworn? Gentlemen, please raise your right hands. Do you solemnly swear that you will duly administer justice according to the rules and the Articles of War for the betterment of the Continental Army and to the act of Congress now enforcing the punishment of mutiny and desertion and other crimes therein mentioned without partiality, favor, or affection?
Yes, I do.
Thank you, gentlemen. Please be seated. Private Willems, we will now read the charges and arraign you before this tribunal. This court-martial, being duly assembled and sworn by the officers of the Continental Army and duly issued the Army's Court of Inquiry on this, the 2nd day of July in the year of our Lord, 1776, do charge the prisoner, Private Willem Willems, a private soldier in the 1st Regiment of the North Carolina Continental Line, being brought before this general court-martial, being guilty of the crime of desertion, a capital offense under the Articles of War, committed on the 1st day of July in 1776 at 6 in the afternoon, to which at that time assigned as a picket, Private Willems did, with intent and forethought, abandon his guard post without an intention to return, and did seek to evade and abscond with a woman of questionable allegiance. He was later found outside the confounds of the settlement of Hickory Ridge, where he was captured and returned in a prisoner exchange. Do you confess to being Private Willem Willems, sir, formerly of the 1st North Carolina Regiment of the Continental Line?
I do.
Thank you, sir. Having heard the charges brought against you, you may now enter a plea. How say you, sir?
I plead
Are you-
not guilty.
Understand your plea is not guilty and that has been entered into the record. The court will now begin its case. Members of the jury, members of the jury, distinguished gentlemen, officers of the North Carolina Lives. Yesterday, on the first day of July 17 and 76, in the state of North Carolina, outside the settlement of Hickory Ridge, this private, while assigned to a picket in the face of the enemy, showed great cowardice, abandoned his post to consort with a woman of questionable allegiance. The evidence will prove that it was his intent to leave his post, that he threw off his regimental coat and vanished into the woods, leaving the settlement unprotected in the face of the enemy. This constitutes a breach of the Articles of War. And after hearing this evidence, I will ask the court to render a sentence of death. The court will now call its first witness.
Objection.
Yes, counsel.
A sentence of death? It's a bit harsh for this, isn't it?
Under the Articles of War, sir, desertion is a capital offense. He deserted his post. Overruled. The court will now call its first witness. Sergeant Kyle Forrest, please approach the bench. Please remain standing, Sergeant, and raise your right hand. Do you swear to tell that the evidence that you shall give before this court-martial shall be the truth, the whole truth, and only the truth, so help you God?
I do, sir.
Thank you, sir. You may be seated. Sergeant Forrest, do you know the accused, Private Willem Willems?
I do.
Give us your testimony, sir, on the events of the 1st of July, 17 and 76.
Well, Private Williams was assigned to picket duty on that occasion. He was covering the western half of the settlement, sweeping and preparing in case any loyalist forces were to be seen or any ne'er-do-wells spotted. However, it was observed that he was tiptoeing away at one point behind a tree. I observed this. In fact, he then proceeded to break out into a sprint with his long, spindly legs and got about, I want to say, 100 yards in about 2 seconds.
Very well. Was he wearing his regimental coat at this time, sir?
He did, but swiftly abandoned it about 200 yards down the road.
Understand. Did you attempt to stop Private Willems from abandoning his post, Sergeant?
I yelled, "Stop, Willems!" But he proceeded on.
Understand. And what actions did you take shortly after he abandoned his post and you realized he did not intend to return?
I went back to the mess tent.
Did you inform anyone of Private Willems' desertion?
Yes, I did.
Who did you inform, sir?
I believe I informed one officer. He was sitting right there.
Very well. So you informed the officer sitting in as chief chair of this tribunal then?
Yes.
Understand. Sergeant, based on the way Private Willems was abandoning his post, do you feel that he would have returned if he had heard you screaming for him to return?
Given how fast he was moving, I don't think so. It is in my opinion.
Very well. Thank you, Sergeant. Sergeant Cruz, I yield the witness to you, sir.
So, describe to me again the nature of his run. You said he ran 200 yards in 2 seconds.
100 yards in about 2 seconds.
2 seconds. 100 yards in 2 seconds. I believe that's the speed of a bullet.
Yes.
That's pretty fast for someone, as you described, with long, spindly legs.
Yes.
And have you seen anyone else run that fast before? Have you seen? That's an incredible speed, is what I'm trying to say.
I must admit it is somewhat of a matter of speech. The specifics.
So an exaggeration, thank you. So what about his equipment? When he goes on guard duty, I believe he is fully accoutered. Is he not?
Yes.
Okay, and where's all this equipment? You said he took off his coat, but you leave out all the equipment. Where's all this equipment?
I believe he shed it just before we began moving out.
And did you go and retrieve that equipment? Isn't your job as the sergeant to make sure that this equipment, his bayonet, his musket, did you find his cartridge box? Any of that equipment?
Yes, that was recovered in the morning.
In the morning.
Mm.
So you allowed that equipment to stay U.S. government property
Objection.
to stay
The sergeant
out
is not on trial
overnight.
here.
I will.
I'm just calling into question his reliability as a witness. I don't believe this is a reliable witness because he says that he flies as fast as a bullet, which is no man could run that fast. No man could shed all that equipment and run 100 yards in 2 seconds. I give you, he is a poor, if not lousy witness. I discredit his entire claim. Thank you. I have no further questions.
Sergeant, what was your job prior to enlisting in the Continental Army, sir?
Carpenter?
So you were not a clockmaker.
No.
Do you own a stopwatch, sir, or a pocket watch, a timepiece?
I unfortunately do not.
So, when you described Private Willems fleeing his post, you did so in a manner to suggest that he was running as fast as he could possibly run.
Yes.
Understand. So you lack the expertise really to give a rate at which he was running, so you merely wanted this jury to understand that he was running as fast as he could.
Yes. With a great pace.
Understand. Thank you, sir.
At what distance did you call him?
At what distance?
Correct. You can tell distances, maybe not time, but certainly at distance you can measure distances. How far were you from you yelled his name to where you were?
I want to say about 50 yards.
Not about, we need more. Was it 50 yards? Was it 75 yards? You are a carpenter, you do know how to measure. How far?
I would say about
About,
56.
we can't use about in the
All
court
right,
of law.
all right.
We need specifics. We have evidence, we need to provide evidence. So far, you have not provided any clear or concise evidence to prove that you know what you're talking about. Can you see? How are your eyes? What is your eyesight? Have you had your eyes checked by the medical doctors here? How far was the distance?
56 yards.
56 yards. That's very specific, sir. Thank you. And how far was the equipment that you found? Was the distance from where Private Williams' post to where he shed his equipment?
Objection. It's speculative. If the equipment was recovered the next morning, where it was found the next morning, cannot be confirmed to be where it was the night that Private Willems fled his post.
Which, again, I call into question whether it was his equipment or not, because it was found the next day. It wasn't recovered immediately. So how can we prove that that equipment was Private Williams? Thank you. I yield to you, sir.
Thank you, Sergeant. Captain, yes, boy.
Sergeant, what is your relation in the chain of command in the private's regiment to him? Is he in your section? Were you the sergeant of the guard?
No, I just happened to be wandering by at that occasion. He is in common to me.
Meaning you were not currently on duty at the time. You
No,
saw
I
it.
was not.
You were just acting as an officer when you saw something amiss.
Yes. I mean, would you not also yell, "Stop!" when you see someone running away from the camp?
So one could argue that the sergeant not being in his chain of command, perhaps Private Willems did not feel the need to obey the orders of a superior non-commissioned officer, which again would speak to his intent to not return to his post following its abandonment.
It is plausible as well that because of Private Williams' incredible speed that he was outpacing the sound of the sergeant's voice, and that he could have not heard him at all.
Understand, Sergeant. So, as you continue to grill the witness for a exact measurement, him being a carpenter and obviously a man who knows his measures well, we
As well he
determined
should.
that it was roughly 6 yards more than what he initially testified. So, sir, can you hear me, sir?
I can hear you.
Can you still hear me, sir?
I can still hear you.
So, would it be your opinion that 6 yards means no difference when I'm speaking to you in a normal voice?
Well-
Therefore, it would not mean much with a man yelling at the top of his lungs.
Well, sir, you're only 20 yards away.
That's fair. Shall I proceed to 56 yards and begin to shout?
I believe you should.
Very well, sir.
I don't see the point in.
There is a point, sir, because Sergeant Willem has been fighting for the Continental Army for some time now, next to the artillery that is up on top of the hill. Sergeant Willem's hearing has been compromised over how many years of service? 5 years. 5 years. 5 years.
So you're saying that Private Willems has been fighting in the Continental Army for 5 years?
No, I'm not saying that he's been fighting the Continental Army. Continental Army hasn't been around that long, but he has been fighting
Very interesting.
with artillery, and I believe Bunker Hill was your first fight? Bunker Hill was his first fight.
So I've noticed, Sergeant, that both you and Private Willems have been whispering among each other during the testimony. If Private Willems' hearing has been so damaged by being in such close proximity to artillery, how can he hear his counsel whisper various things during cross-examination, sir?
I'm not under. I'm
The jury would like to
I'm
make
the counsel.
one more question. Would like to ask another question of the witness.
Proceed,
Did
Captain.
you identify yourself when you called the accused to stop? Can you say with beyond a shadow of a doubt that you identified yourself as a non-commissioned officer and ordered him to stop?
No, sir, I cannot say, I'm a sergeant, stop! No, I did not do that.
Understood. Continue.
Can I ask a question? How many days was it before Private Williams was found?
1 day.
1 day.
He absconded on the 1st of July and was apprehended on the 2nd of July, sir.
Okay.
I have no.
I've pinned it to the jury. The state has no further questions on it. Thank you, Sergeant. We appreciate your testimony. You are dismissed, sir. This court will now call its second witness, Private Augustine Barnhart. Understand, Augustine. Thank you, sir.
Rowan County.
Understand, Rowan County Militia. Thank you, sir. Please remain standing, sir, and raise your right hand. Do you solemnly swear that the evidence you shall give before this court-martial shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
Full truth.
Thank you, Private. You may be seated. So, Private Barnhart, on the 1st of July, did you witness Private Willem Willems abandon his post and flee into the woods?
Yeah.
Could you please describe that scene for us, sir?
Booster Company,
Pardon, if I
Demosh.
may interrupt for a second. I have bread in the oven. Could we pause for a second so I can go get my bread?
Yes, we'll hold for just a second.
Not a joke.
Rest easy, Private. Rest easy.
I really do.
My class
He's
brought
the cook. He might have to check food.
We will now take a 5-minute recess.
All rise.
It's been sworn. Still sworn.
Yes, you are still sworn. Please have a seat, Private. So again, Private, back
If I
to...
may interrupt just one more time.
Yes, Sergeant.
Are there other witnesses?
This is the state's second witness.
Is there a third witness?
There is not a third
On ours.
witness.
Only 2 witnesses on ours.
So the young lady in question is not to be found?
No, sir. She is behind enemy lines where her allegiance is said to be, sir.
Thank you. answer, question, answer, please.
If the private would wish to produce said young lady, we will happily question her as to her motives. We would also like to check her pockets.
Is that all, Captain?
Yeah.
Thank you, sir. So, Private Barnhart, again, you have testified that you saw Private Willem Willems flee his post.
Ja.
Please describe the scene that you saw to the court.
Unser company from Rowan across our company from Rowan County.
English or gesprochen?
Ja,
I think he's trying.
Ik verzoek hem, ja. In Rowan across nu dit Dutch was gezegd. Anyway, so Unser company comes from Yadkin River last night. Wir geht hier und oben the mountain. 7 Uhr. 7 o'clock. 7 o'clock. Und dieses Mann, ich sah, laufen sehr schnell unter das Bürger nach Jagdfluss. Kannst du das später?
He was running very quickly toward a town
Jagdfluss River.
near the Yadkin River.
Ja.
They're in the direction of the Yadkin River.
Unter das Bürger. Ost.
Running east.
Ja, ja. Und wir heißen dieses Mal, wir
Called to him,
Halt!
told him to stop,
Hände hoch!
put his hands up,
Ja, noch laufen. Sehr schnell.
Kept running very fast.
Run very fast. Still run. Und on running, not stop. Dieses Papier, Geldpapier, noch nicht dieses Geldpapier, gedroppt,
he dropped money,
ist 18 Pence, Schilling, Engländer Geld.
English money.
So
Ja,
18 pence
From
English
Jesus free.
note.
From Marx, not Marx. There's no not Marx. Of dieses Jahr,
that was printed in March of this
die
year.
neues Jersey. Die neue Jersey. Es Engländer. Gedroppt. Von der Soße.
Fell out of his pants.
Und ja, noch laufen still.
Continued running.
Ich denke, warum haben dieses Mann Engländer Geld?
Why does this man have English money?
Ja. Entschuldigung wieder für mein schlechtes Englisch.
I apologize for my poor English.
Ich bin pennsylvanisch Deutsch.
I am from Pennsylvania,
Yeah.
and my parents are German,
North Carolinisch Deutsch.
and we just came to North Carolina.
Thank you, Private Barnhart.
Dieses Evidence.
Understand evidence. Thank you. The court will take that into possession as
Anyways,
evidence.
so wir kommen oben den Berge, den Mountain, auf der Bahn. Und schnell laufender Weg. Okay. Danke. Wer ist dieses Mann? Who this man? Engländer.
He thinks he's English.
Ja, ein Königsmann. Kingsman. Ja,
A loyalist.
ja.
So, Private, you said you saw Private Willem Willems
Yeah,
approximately
Willem.
7 o'clock
Yeah.
in the evening. How far away were you from this settlement when you saw Private Willems?
Drive miles? 3 miles?
Understand 3 miles away
Ost.
to the
miles
east.
Yeah.
Understand. Did Private Willems appear as though he had been running for some time?
Ja.
Thank you.
Er Luft sehr müde.
Tired.
Ja, ja.
Understand,
Aber
thank you.
noch läuft nicht. Nicht so schnell, aber noch schnell.
He was still running, but he was not going very fast because he was tired.
No, schneller, aber nicht so schnell. Fast, but not so fast.
So he still appeared as though he was running as hard as he could,
Yeah.
but due to fatigue, it was not as fast as you believe he was capable.
Der Wasser.
Lots of sweat.
Ja, ja.
Thank you. Sergeant, your witness, sir.
That's a fine looking weapon that you're carrying.
Ja,
Can you tell us about it?
ja, dieses ist eines it's from the Indian trade Frankreich. Über ich dieses
What does his weapon have to do
ja,
with this?
was ist mit meinem Wix?
I've got it. I'll get there. I'll get to the point. Do you know how to use it?
Ja,
Pretty good at it?
ja.
When you see the enemy running away, are you not supposed to fire?
Ja,
Did you ask him to stop?
ja.
And you thought he was the king's man?
Vielleicht, maybe.
You thought, maybe.
Maybe.
He was a good chance.
Ja. Aber war
And you were with
gegangen, bevor ich das Geld bekomme.
and you were with by yourself? You were with other men?
Mit 5 Männer.
Five other men. You were on patrol?
No, we marched here
Okay,
from Salzburg.
got it. Was your musket loaded? Was your sorry,
Ist eine
Fowler?
Uzi. Ja,
was your Fowler loaded?
nein.
Why?
Wir haben das Squirrel und beschieden.
Well, you can hit a squirrel,
Yeah.
and you can load and hit a squirrel. And the other men, they were unloaded as well?
Nein.
They were all loaded. And so why didn't we shoot when we saw the king's man? And you told him to halt, and he did not. And yet you did not fire. Did you actually see him running?
Ich sah einen Mann mit das Kleider.
Running
that
away?
close. Ja.
So you didn't see his face. So it could have been anybody who was running away. If he was running away, you didn't see his face, and you didn't fire. So you found money.
Wir didn't know
You didn't
who,
pursue. Did you pursue?
No,
Didn't pursue.
wir haben viel Zeit.
So you didn't fire.
Und
You didn't pursue. You didn't know who it was. All you saw was his back. You have the wrong man. Thank you. No more questions.
Private, was the man that you saw fleeing the scene, was he armed?
Nein.
Is the Continental Army in the habit of shooting unarmed men in the back
Nein.
as they flee before we know certainly that they are the enemy?
We are in the habit of shooting warning shots. That has been established many, many times. So we did not even fire to give him a warning shot to let him know that they will shoot if necessary.
Ich diese Fuß
So we
nicht,
just yell and we
did
just let
not
him go.
know.
Okay.
Wir sind Militia.
Ja. Was Nummer Patronen hast du?
Ich habe
That is a full cartridge box. That is a full cartridge box. That is.
aber meine Horn haben nichts.
No powder.
But you have a full box.
But we didn't give him a warning shot. We gave him a shout of some sort of somebody running away. So do we have the right man? Are we sure we have the right man? Thank you.
Thank you, Sergeant.
Ask a question, Private Willem.
Please.
Private Williams, is this your first time serving picket duty?
No, sir.
Okay, so you've served picket duty before. How long is that duty period?
It varies, sir.
Varies. Have you ever been on picket duty for an entire day? Would that be unusual?
Would not be unusual, sir.
It would not be unusual to be on picket for a full day.
So to continue the captain's line of questioning, you are arguing that picket duty without relief for over 24 hours is a normal part of your duties as a private in the Continental Army.
Well, we said a day. We didn't say 24 hours. Are we calling hours? Because 12 hours on picket duty has been done before. That's a full day.
That's a fair question, sir. Any Any further questions from the jury?
Was your assigned picket duty for that long period? You had specific orders to serve that amount of time?
Not that time, sir.
Not at that time. What were your specific time for that duty when you were expected to be relieved?
Sir, my times were from noon that day to 8 o'clock that night.
Okay. And
When I
from
was
8
to be
o'clock
relieved.
at night till the next day, where were you?
I was in camp, sir, resting.
You were in camp.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Thought we found him in a different area.
We did. We found him outside the camp the next morning, not in his tent, not resting after a long day on picket duty.
We can account for that time.
So what was the private doing during that time, outside of camp?
I believe it was at 5 a.m. you left camp.
Yes, sir.
At 5 a.m. you left camp, and that's when you found he was heading to that direction under orders.
Where are those orders now? Did he have a pass or leave to leave the camp at 5 a.m.?
My pass here, sir.
Counsel, what is your relationship with the accused outside of Hickory?
I feed him,
Fair enough.
as I feed the rest of the camp. As part of the quartermaster corps, that was my job.
So it appears that the private has not handed me a pass, but instead has handed me his enlistment paperwork signed by you, sir, Colonel Nash. However, there is nothing that suggests he had permission or orders to leave the camp at 5 a.m. This court will enter that as Exhibit B.
Are we done with this
Into the
witness?
record.
Yes, I believe we're done with the witness.
Thank you, Private. Please step aside.
If I may,
Proceed, Sergeant.
I would like the court to provide a third witness. All this stems over Private Nash, reportedly going to see a lady of questionable allegiance. Where is this lady of questionable allegiance? I believe that this whole court would like to speak to this young lady if this is what he is being accused of.
We would absolutely agree,
In
Sergeant.
addition to this, not done. You will notice that these guards have been lax in their duty. So clearly, this young man is no threat to anybody. They marched him down here with no bayonets fixed, and that is, for someone who is charged with criminal, is that not the protocol for delivering a criminal who is dangerous under guard, under fixed bayonets? These men are not clearly do not see him and are good friends with Private William and trust him completely if they are not able to or not willing to fix their bayonets.
So, Sergeant, the crime of desertion is not a violent crime, sir. It is a crime of cowardice, which suggests that Private Willems is not a danger to himself or any other man
That
on
is
this
true,
earth.
but he is also going towards the enemy, and if he is going towards the enemy, as you say, then and consorting with the enemy, then he is a danger to this camp and to our Continental Congress.
One would agree that he has the potential to do damage to this army, sir. As to your question as to the woman appearing before this court, we attempted to find said woman, but she seems to have left the country, and we are unable to provide her testimony.
So, I understand that, but you have provided no evidence of his desertion.
Sergeant, we provided 2 eyewitnesses to his desertion.
You have one man who cannot tell the difference between 50 yards and 60 yards. Who knows how long he was able to speak? His time frame is completely off. I'm not sure he's able to yell that loud enough. And,
I can assure you he is.
And you have another young man who I don't know if anyone understood half of what he said. Unless the jury can understand him. So, but that's questionable. So I can't understand or cross-examine him. I can't ask him a question.
And yet you still
so-
did, Sergeant. You did not raise this objection when he began testifying in broken English and attempting to correct himself, so why the objection now? I have provided
There are
two
so many
witnesses,
places
sir.
to-
Two witnesses to Private Willems abandoning his post and fleeing into the woods. One witness attempted to stop him and he did not stop.
The jury calls a short adjournment in another attempt to locate the female in question. Prosecution is...
Why does the colonel know where she is?
I do not
That's
question the
an
colonel's...
excellent question.
That is an
and
excellent
that's a question. Why does the colonel know where the young lady with questionable loyalties?
Because he
why
outrankes
does
me,
he know where she is? Nobody else knows where she is, but the colonel knows her whereabouts. Definitely. This whole court case needs to come to an end. I beg you that his relationship with the young lady, Colonel, your relationship.
Behold, Sergeant, your wish has come true, sir. The young lady with whom Private Willems is accused of absconding to sea has miraculously arrived.
My
with the
first
aid of Colonel
question
Nash.
is going to be, and you should all
Sergeant,
know this,
she is not
hear
your
me
witness,
now.
sir.
My
Sergeant,
first question is going to be,
Sergeant,
what is
she
her
is not-
relationship with the Colonel?
I
Because
understand.
clearly
She is
there
not
is
your
a
witness at
relationship.
this time. Please be seated, sir. Madam, if you would please stand before the bench. Yes, ma'am. Ma'am, can you please raise your right hand? Do you solemnly swear that the testimony and evidence that you give before this tribunal will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
Only if I have to.
Yes or no, madam?
Yes.
Thank you, madam. Please be seated. Ma'am, could you state your name for the record, please?
Kathleen.
I understand Kathleen. Kathleen, do you know the accused, Private Willems?
Not sure.
How could you not be sure,
I
madam?
don't know if I've ever seen him before.
You don't know that you've ever seen him before.
There are many men here before me, so they all look a little similar.
Understand, there are lots of men here in the camp that look very similar. Do you know any men in the courtroom today?
No.
Understand, no. So it is your testimony that you have never once met Private Willems. You have never once met Colonel Francis Nash. Understand, no. And yet somehow, on the orders of Colonel Nash, you have miraculously appeared before this court.
He came into my home.
May I approach the bench, sir?
Yes, you may.
Sirs, many people are waiting.
Singular, sir.
She's dismissed.
Thank you, madam. You may leave the court.
Are we ready to dismiss the charges?
No, we are not.
He has to give his own counsel, and apparently he has his own witness.
So,
I do have a question for
Sergeant, you may call your first witness.
my first witness is Private Willems. My first and only man.
Very well. Private Willems, could you please stand and raise your right hand again, sir?
He was already sworn in.
That is correct. Thank you, Sergeant.
Please be seated. When did you receive this paper? When did you receive this paper?
I received this paper the morning of the 2nd.
The morning of the 2nd. Please read said paper.
Can he even read?
I cannot read, sir.
When Colonel Nash gave you this said paper, did he tell you what it was?
He told me it was a pass, sir. My pass out of the camp. in order to find, well, sir, he made me swear not to disclose.
Well, you are under orders, or under oath, to tell the truth. So, I ask you again, when he gave you this piece of paper, what did he ask you to do?
He told me to go outside the camp towards the enemy lines and to procure a certain woman, the name of Kathleen, and bring her
So-
back to camp.
Objection.
So,
Miss Kathleen has already testified she knows neither the colonel nor Private Willems.
her profession, for lack of a better word, is to keep quiet about who she meets with. Does that mean that she is a spy? Of course not. Does that mean she is employed in other arrangements? Of course. So, my client, Private Lim, was under the impression that this was a pass, not an enlistment. He does have an enlistment that has expired several times over, and now has this piece of paper who he believes was a pass. So he's, as far as he's concerned, that is a pass.
So your entire defense, sir, is to impugn upon the honor of the colonel of the 1st North Carolina Regiment of the Continental Line with a story of a man whose enlistment papers, according to his testimony, were a pass to leave, and yet somehow a force was sent out to apprehend him and arrested him for desertion, and yet somehow this whole cockamamie story about his enlistment papers being a pass and poor Private Willems can't read. That is your defense, sir, when I produced 2 witnesses. One that saw him flee his post. One, an hour later, 3 miles distant from the settlement, saw a man matching his description continuing to flee east towards the Yadkin River, who did not stop, and yet he was apprehended the next morning. Your defense is that instead, Colonel Francis Nash is the villain, sir. Is that correct? You are saying he conspired to doom Private Willem Willems to death for want of a woman.
I believe.
I did not ask you to believe, sir. Is that your testimony? Is that your defense?
A, how would I know exactly where the enemy lines are and who is in their camp?
Well, Colonel, I would hope you would know where the enemy lines are. I would hope. I am a cook. I'm behind the lines, and I know where the enemy lines are. Captain, to answer your question,
Yes, Sergeant.
I believe the Colonel impugns himself. I also believe, for lack of a better term, that the 2 witnesses that you have provided, one who doesn't know our private, he's from another company, he is randomly walking through the woods, he yells out in the woods, and we know all how far sound travels. Is he armed? He's walking around with unarmed? I don't understand that. And your other witness sees a man running from the back, and the entire patrol does not fire to stop the man who they believe is an enemy. Why doesn't he shoot? I think that's a question.
I agree that's a question, sir. But calling into the question the honor and the integrity of 3 men instead of the one who abandoned his post is a brave defense
Well,
to take before this tribunal.
the three reasons that I have presented to the court makes the whole story of Private Willem leaving his post questionable at best. So I leave it to the court at this point that the captain, as honorable as the captain is, has not presented an argument that can condemn this man to death.
Gentlemen of the jury, do you have anything further?
I do not.
We don't deny him leaving camp. You do deny winning that.
Do you have any witnesses that can attest to him being in his tent until 5 o'clock in the morning?
It's 5 a.m., sir. Everybody's asleep.
So,
for the
so no one
pickets.
saw him leave. This is all on the testimony of Private Willem Willems
He is under
against
oath.
the testimony of 3 honorable men of the Continental Army.
He is under oath, as well as your men
as
are.
are they.
However, the question, your men have questionable answers.
Very well, Sergeant. Anything further, Colonel?
Nah.
Captain? Very well, gentlemen of the jury. You will enter deliberations to determine both the verdict and the punishment. Aye, sir. Colonel Nash, has the tribunal reached a verdict?
Yeah.
Please deliver the verdict to the court, sir.
The captain.
Captain Barnes will deliver the verdict.
Thank you.
Private, we find you guilty of deserting your post before you were properly relieved. To this, we sentence you to 25 lashes and non-concurrently 3 days in the stocks. We also wish that you would exhibit more judgment in the selection of female companionship than your colonel.
Colonel, do you have anything to add, sir?
I've been told if I have nothing nice to say, not to say anything at all.
Captain?
I think we're done here.
Very well. Sergeant, please escort your client with the guard to receive his lashes and then place him in the stocks for 3 days.
After he is recovered.
Are we going to fix bandits or are we still?
You may fix bayonets. The defendant's been found guilty.
Again,
The foretraining of the guards is something to take up with their sergeants and with their officers. That is not something to be addressed by the court. Sergeant.
agree.
Gentlemen, you are dismissed.